Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum and some alts I'm bullish on. Well, let's dive straight into it. Of course, you know this roughly this schematic I had drawn out for a while now of what I would wanted to see approximately here. So currently, I mean, obviously we're not following it exactly, but the fact that we're going sideways here, just consolidating against his previous all-time high, which is the red line, is pretty good to me. I mean, we've mostly reset all the indicators that were like very overheated. So RSI has come down a bit. We have funding rates back to normal, and just in general, the sentiment has cooled off a bit. People have become a bit bored again, which is good because the longer we hang around here, the higher we will go on the next leg up. I think once we do break out. So for now, obviously, this is the main level to watch. This white dotted line. Keep in mind, these diagonals can be a bit subjective. In the end, of course, I think this 69k level is an important one because it's the previous all-time high. And I mean, the moment we do break out here and, of course, above our current all-time high, I do think we'll head to like the 80s or whatever it may stop afterwards. This, of course, is just an idea. But yeah, I mean, if we do hang out here for a while longer, I think that's okay. I think, like I said, the longer we hang around here and we just consolidate, the better of a base we have going forward. So yeah, I'm fine with whatever. And I think the best play is here just to accumulate whatever you want. Get some solid prices, some alts which are down considerably. I mean, Bitcoin is down like 5% or a bit more. But even ETH is down quite a bit more, and some alts are down like 50% from their highs already. So, if you're looking to scoop some of that on your favorite tokens, then of course these are not unreasonable levels, I think, compared to before. Especially now, all these indicators have cooled off a bit. So, moving on. Well, before we move on, last week I had another educational video, this time about market structure. So, in case you are interested in that, check it out. And then onto Bitcoin dominance. Obviously, this thing is a bit subjective because there's stable coins in here, and it mostly moves based on what ETH does, as ETH is the biggest coin out there behind Bitcoin. At this point, I think many people are expecting this to touch this 56-57% area, and I think it makes sense looking at ETH BTC, which we're gonna head into shortly. But yeah, I mean, for now, Bitcoin dominance is still strong, which means Bitcoin is outperforming most altcoins in general. Of course, this is also mostly due to ETH weakness. I think for now, I would not be super bullish or bearish on altcoins relative to Bitcoin in the short term. I think it's very possible we do get another leg up. If at some point we do get below 52% and we hold there and eventually get below like 48-49%, I think that will be the sign to really start allocating more heavy into alts relative to BTC. But for now, we're just going to wait it out. I mean, I got the exposure I want in both Bitcoin, Ethereum, anything else. So yeah, we're just going to wait it out and see where this wants to go. I think we might just take a little longer before this actually gets going again. Then onto the total chart. So this is total one. This is just the regular total market cap of crypto. You can see how we very nicely broke above this high, which was the high in like a dead cat, our first main dead cat bounce in 2022 in end of March towards April. And I mean, this is just looking great, and it's ready to go for these autumn highs, which is about 3 trillion. Obviously, the fact that we didn't reach this yet, while Bitcoin did make a new all-time high, is because mainly ETH and a lot of alts in general have not touched their all-time highs just yet. So that's why we've come just short of it for now. Which is more clear here because Total 2 excludes Bitcoin. And here you can see how we exactly touched this high, which of course we broke above here already. Which means we're not totally over this resistance level just yet. And I think eventually, of course, if Bitcoin goes high enough, that will pull alts up with it. But eventually this will have to come from ETH to finally show some strength. And then lastly, total 3 here is everything excluding Bitcoin and ETH. And you can see how it's roughly at the same level. So you can see ETH is roughly performing according to like the average alt out there. Of course, we've seen a lot of things like AI coins, meme coins, and Solana, which have done much better. So those are pulling this up a bit, but overall, you can see alts are still lagging behind Bitcoin quite a bit. Then onto ETH. We're basically back at this long time support on the ETH BTC chart. Last time this was right around the ETF approval and when it went live. So afterwards, people were like, okay, this is it, the end of the bleeding for ETH. And we had like a massive, what was this, like a 30% candle up, I think. Yeah, so that was quite large. Then we retraced most of it, took another step at it, but then here we are again, back at the support level. Main thing contributing to this recent sell-off the past few weeks is, of course, and I made a thread about this a few days ago on ETH. The main thing here is that previously, right after the BTC approval of the ETF, we had like an 80% probability of also getting an ETH ETF by May, because the 23rd of May this year, we have the final deadline on this ETH ETF. So initially people were pretty positive about it, but by now, on going on like the betting prediction markets, the probability is down to like 17%. So you can imagine how if we go from like 80% up here down to whatever it is now, 16%, that's a lot of unpricing, because the expectation of it getting approved versus it now being not approved obviously has impacted the chart a bit. But to be fair, I mean, it's not great, but seeing BTC rallied quite a lot during this time, and we unpriced of this ETF, like the ETF probability, I don't think it's too bad. But seeing we're still at 17%, if it doesn't go through, of course, I'm not ruling out like another step lower. And in that case, I think mainly watching this 0.046 level towards like, let's say 4.1 would be approximately where I could see us go, which is also lining up nicely with this high up here. So yeah, this region roughly, if we get there, I will start allocating more BTC into ETH, as by then I think, especially if the ETF were to get denied, by then we have done all unpricing of this ETF. I do think we're gonna see issuers like BlackRock refile pretty soon after, or dispute the decision or whatever. I'm not sure about the details, how those things tend to go. But generally, I do think eventually we do get the ETF. Might be later this year, might be next year. But I mean, the moment it gets denied and they refile, we already have this renewed hope and a new deadline, and we can work towards that. And I think eventually that should put in a bottom for ETH BTC. I will say though, of course, we've still been seeing massive inflows on BTC. So you can imagine, let's say BTC gets 1 billion in inflows on a day. That means for ETH to be relatively the same value, it has to get like a lot of inflows or buying as well, because otherwise BTC is just gonna get pumped more and we see the ETH BTC value go down, which is what we've been seeing. So all those things considered, yes, ETH has been really weak, but compared to BTC and all these inflows and the ETF getting priced, I don't think it's even that bad. But I mean, I'm not running out another step lower, but that's basically my thoughts on it right now. And obviously, if we do get some positive news regarding this ETF over the next few weeks, which makes it seem like it's still possible before May, then I might consider just allocating earlier, because who knows, maybe they'll do it in like a really rapid fashion, because obviously these issuers, which is all the same, like BlackRock and Fidelity, they've already talked with SEC about pretty much a similar product, mostly with Bitcoin. So who knows, maybe they will do it in an accelerated fashion, but for now it does seem like it's unlikely. But yeah, we'll see in due time. And then onto the ETH USD chart quickly. So far it's been holding this 3200 level, which is an important one. Was this wick on this initial big flush. Then retested again. Now we retested it again like 3 times here in a few days. So far we're holding it. I mean, as long as we hold above here, I'm just pretty bullish on this. Not sure, like I said, if it's gonna outperform Bitcoin in the short term, But overall, I do think the risk reward for ETH is getting like a lot better the lower it goes relative to BTC. As eventually, I mean, once expectations are at rock bottom, it can only just get better from there. I prefer allocating into something like that to compare to something that's really overhyped, and at that point it can only turn into a sell the news or a disappointment. So I think that's why ETH is getting to interesting levels up here. And the USD chart obviously is just pretty bullish still, but I mean this level is important to overtake, I think. So let's say 3200 must hold, 3600 is a level to break, and hopefully after that we can finally break all-time highs and the nice around 5k level, which we've not hit just yet in the last cycle. Then onto some new coins. ETHINA, I mean, this project has really taken all the spotlight the past week, I'd say. What they do, I'll try to explain it really quickly and really simply. They basically do the basis farming for their users or for the protocol. So what this means is they basically farm the funding rates. So I posted about this before as well. It's where, for example, the funding rates are really high, really positive. So mostly longs are in the system, which means if you're short, you actually get paid this funding. So what you can do in that case, if you have stables on the side, you can just, let's say you buy $100 of Bitcoin, then you short $100 of Bitcoin, which means you basically earn or lose nothing if Bitcoin goes up or down. But meanwhile, as time goes on, you get paid funding on your short because the funding rate is really high. So therefore, you're basically just farming this funding rate with like zero up or downside on the price itself. So that's kind of what this has been doing, and doing it in a really, really good way, because I mean, I think their stablecoin is up to like 2 or 3 billion now, which is used to do this farming. And yeah, I mean, since the launch, it has been doing really well. Earlier this year, all these new big launches used to do really well for the first 1 or 2 weeks. Then afterwards, they tend to bleed a bit, and then eventually they do recover. But it seems like this is just up and up and to the right since the start. And I mean, it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Obviously, the fully diluted valuation is pretty high. It's at like 16 billion or something, with the regular market cap at like 1.5. But I don't think there's any unlocks for the next year or so to come. So I think that's the most important thing to keep an eye on, because that means the market cap is relatively small. And a good example of that is always WorldCoin, which I've mentioned before. It went to like almost 100 billion market cap, fully diluted, which would be more than OpenAI, for example, which obviously doesn't make sense, but it just shows you how if there's a low float or low circulating supply, these things can get really high. And then the next one, Wormhole, didn't do as well as ETHINA. I mean, it launched a few days afterwards, I think, or yeah, just 1 day afterwards. This thing launched pretty high, but then kind of did the opposite, so it fell initially. Seems to be forming some kind of bottom here, but so far, I mean, yes, this was decent. It is basically back into this range, but until it breaks higher here, and ideally here, I'm not really trading anything here, but could be good for scalps, as these things do tend to have a lot of volume, a lot of liquidity, and are pretty good to trade these shorter term moves if you're interested in that. Then 4 coins, which you probably know I hold, but I think some of them are quite interesting at this point. Blur, for example. I think the Blur farming for Blast ends somewhere next month. I don't know the exact details. Will be yet to see how that impacts the price of Blur, because obviously people are gonna unlock their Blur and they might end up selling it. But usually around these unlocks, there tend to be some bullish news or catalysts that are being announced to obviously try to absorb whatever selling is there. But besides all that, I mean, the chart still, it's consolidating, but this falling wedge is pretty clean. I mean, it has so many touch points where it's getting respected pretty well, both on the upside and the downside. So if this were to break out, and ideally it breaks out a bit higher, then consolidates up here, and then starts the next leg up. And you could wait for something like this, where it breaks out of this consolidation after the breakout. I think that's the safest bet, usually when trading these kind of things. But yeah, definitely an interesting one, because this is a pretty big falling wedge, has been in there for 2 months, quite a big drop during that, and usually if these do break out and there's some positive momentum, the upside can be really good on these. Then mental. I mean, this thing has been carrying my portfolio lately. I allocated into this a while ago at like 75 to 80 cents or something. So roughly up here. And yeah, I mean, this thing, it's just going. It's still pretty under the radar, I think. It's layer 2. They got the biggest treasury of all of crypto. So more than Ethereum Foundation, just by a little bit. A lot of it is actually in their own token. So I don't particularly count that in. But besides that, they own a ton of stable coins in Ethereum, and with that they already also own the biggest treasury. So interesting one, especially as they're now trying to incentivize users onto their ecosystem or onto their chain by giving all these rewards for staking mental, or with the mental staked ETH, which are getting additional yields. And because they got such a big treasury, they can just keep on doing this for a long time if they would want to, which would eventually get like a lot of people over to their chain or the ecosystem, which will also attract developers, new projects launching on there. And of course, the more that happens, the more the ecosystem will flourish. It's not a small coin, but I think it's, at least for me, it's a pretty safe bet, and I'm happy I bought into this. Obviously, you've probably seen me on Twitter talk about this quite a bit recently, because I'm really liking what they've been doing, and yeah, just gonna hold this for the cycle to come and see where it wants to go. Then stacks, I mean, pretty solid. I hope to see this actually break above this previous all-time high soon. Still, obviously, a big uptrend. The Nakamoto upgrade is coming around the halving, which will cut the block times to like 10 seconds from 10 minutes. So I think that would also give a good opportunity for this ecosystem to really get going, because there's already some, like there's some dexes on there, and you can swap for meme coins and whatnot. But obviously with the 10-minute block time, it's not really desirable by many, especially if you're flipping meme coins or something. So yeah, let's see what this upgrade does. Besides that, just looking at the chart, I would want to see this break above 3-4, which was the previous all-time high, and then stay there and hopefully continue on from there. And lastly, Doge. I think this chart just looks really great. It's by far the strongest meme coin out there, I think, from the big ones. Because it was lagging behind a lot, but when most of them now started consolidating, Doge is actually putting in some higher numbers. April was generally good because 420 and whatnot. I mean, there's always something stupid going on during April, usually with Elon as well. Yeah, I mean, just going by the chart, this looks pretty good. Don't want to see it lose, like, let's say 16 cents again. But as long as we hold above here, I'm pretty bullish on this to at least test, like, approximately here, this range high of this area. So I'd say hold above 16, hopefully tap like 30 cents-ish, roughly. And if not, of course, I mean, next support 12 cents. Below there, I think it's kind of wrecked. Don't want to see that happen. But for now, trend is up. Trend is your friend, and we'll keep it simple. So, was quite a bit. And I mean, I hope it gave you some more insight in how I'm watching the market right now. Real quickly, we did open up, or we're gonna probably open up with a decent CME gap. Now, I will say, and I said this before, during uptrends, and especially when you're close to all-time high, there tends to be quite a few weekends where you, especially when you get like a big move, you just break higher, you don't fill the CME gap, and then there's often a lot of people waiting for this gap that has to be filled. But of course, I mean, it doesn't have to. It's more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I always say, like, if price trades close to it, like a few percent, yes, it can be worth watching it, but don't expect it to always get filled. What we've seen quite a few times recently is where we do open up with a gap, futures reopen, we get like a quick wick down, and then from there now it just continues where it left off and then goes higher. I think that happened like 2 or 3 times during this run up here to 70k. Yeah, and of course there's still some gaps below us as well, which are or still opened for much lower and earlier. I mean, sometimes that happens, but keep that in mind. But for now, I mean, consolidating is pretty solid. I think I like it. I want to see us not go up too quickly again, because then we're gonna get overheated in no time. So the slow sideways chop and then a slow grind up would be my ideal scenario. And hopefully at some point we can see ETH bottom as well, which will likely, once it does, take most alts with it once it finally gets going. Because, I mean, many alts have still been outperforming or underperforming Bitcoin for the good part of this cycle, except, for example, the AI coins, meme coins, whatever sector is hot. But I think once ETH finally gets going, then we'll see our proper first alt season. Maybe it's just gonna be a few weeks, but yeah, I mean, that's something to look forward to in the coming weeks or months, I think. Not calling for it right now, but I think it's gonna get pretty close. Just gonna need everyone on ETH to capitulate at this point, however that may happen, and then I think we're good to go somewhere around the summer, hopefully. All right, I hope you all enjoyed. I wish you all a good week ahead, and take care. Bye bye.